Hi everyone, my name is Cheryl Santa Cruz. I am the programming manager at Outfest, and I am so glad to have the two filmmakers from the documentary House of Cardin. We have P. David Ebersol and Todd Hughes. Hi guys, thanks for joining us.
Hi Cheryl. Hi Cheryl. Anything for Cheryl.
Yay! We go way back.
That's right. We met you in our first documentary, Hit So Hard, at the premiere in New York City.
That made the whole entire audience wait for an hour before we start. It was like the most nerve-wracking day of my life. I was sweating bullets.
Yeah, we were in the basement.
Glamorous. It was good.
Oh, it was absolutely. Yeah, we were in the basement of the Museum of Modern Art, where they have their two theaters. And yeah, no, I just remember for anyone who's ever been to the theaters at MoMA, they're down like 2 or 3 flights of stairs, and the step and repeat, the entrance is on the ground floor, and then you have to go down 2 flights of stairs to get to the theater. So if I recall correctly, there were a lot of getting your steps in to figure out what was
up and down and up.
Well, because we kept getting texts like, Courtney's 20 minutes away, she's 10 minutes away, and then it was like 30 minutes later.
Yeah.
In fact, audience full of people, 500 people all sitting there like getting rescued.
But she showed up.
She showed up. She showed up to the press. And was she in the Q&A? She was in the Q&A.
Oh yeah, she was great.
Yeah, she was great.
And she was wearing a beautiful Alexander McQueen dress. She looked like a movie star.
Yeah, well, because she isn't dark.
And she smelled like Marlboro Lights.
Any other way. Well, it's funny you bring up Hit So Hard, because you guys have, you've worked on a few other docs. Again, you've got Hit So Hard, and then you also have a doc on Jane Mansfield, and now we've got Pierre Cardin. So it seems like you're kind of hitting all of the different kind of creative, artistic, like kind of icons in creative and artistic fields. How do you choose who your subjects are going to be? 1, and then 2, why specifically Pierre Cardin?
Yeah.
Well, with Patty Schemmel, she was our friend in Silver Lake, and she's the one who got us into this mess, right? So we did Hit So Hard, and then luckily Cher saw Hit So Hard and picked us to do the documentary about her mother. So that came to us. Jane Mansfield, of course, we were obsessed with for many years. So that was inevitable. But with Pierre Cardin, we moved to Palm Springs 6 years ago, bought this house, which was built in 1969. And because everyone out here is very design aware, most people have all the classic modern furniture, right? The Noguchi coffee table, the Nelson bench, yada, yada, yada. And we were looking for something a little more disco, a little more 70s.
Space age, right? Yeah.
Gucci, Fiorucci, Halston. And so David designed this beautiful couch back here, this circular metallic couch. And then you can't see it, but there's a beautiful round coffee table in the middle. And that was the first thing we bought, and it was Pierre Cardin. And I think that was the first time we were like, oh, right, that guy who did the cologne and stuff. And we were looking, and it's like, wow, he did this gorgeous kind of Italianate space age furniture. And we started collecting that, and then we found out, wow, he was the guy who sort of developed designer lifestyle. So sheets and towels, plates, flatware, games. It just kept going on. And then we discovered he did a 1972 AMC Javelin, the car.
So the car in the movie.
It's in the movie,
The movie is our car, and it's like in the garage out here. And so we had this opportunity to meet Mr. Cardin in Paris. Everyone knew that we were obsessed with him, all of our friends. So all we really wanted was like a picture with Mr. Cardin to sort of brag to our friends on Facebook. Look, we met our hero. And before we knew it, we were there as documentary filmmakers. They knew we made movies. And slowly but surely, we realized that they thought we were approaching them about making a film. And we were showing Mr. Cardin all the things in our house and the 1972 Javelin on my phone. And he stopped on the car, and he looked at the car, and he looked at us, and he said, okay, what do you want to do and when do you want to start? Just like for Philippe Starck and for, for Jean-Paul Gaultier in the film, how they talk about that, or Maurice, that glamorous, glamazon model that becomes his director of haute couture. He sort of just sees you and decides you're the right person for the job. And so we suddenly were like, oh, I guess we're doing a documentary on Pierre Cardin. And you can't, I mean, he's 95 years old at that point. And so it was kind of also like TikTok, you got to get to it. So,
but we were handed this.
Yeah.
He's never said yes to a documentary in his entire life. He worked on a biography with a writer about 10 years ago. And when he finally read it, he said, I hate this, pull it.
And apparently it was innocuous. It wasn't anything like that it was saying something about it he didn't like. He just didn't like what it was or the style of it, or didn't feel comfortable having his life talked about. So at this point, Matthew Gonder, who's in the film, he's the one who speaks English and French, and he seems sort of like the best friend of Pierre. He's around a lot when we're filming, and he translates for us on screen. And he is the American brand ambassador, and he said to Pierre, if your story is ever going to be done, now's the moment. You could be a part of it and make sure that what gets said about you is something that you feel comfortable with. And these guys love you. Like, these are not guys who are coming trying to do some, uncover some dirt, whatever that might be, because there's no dirt on Mr. Cardin. But what better way than to have your legacy preserved while you're still here to be a part of it. We had a dream experience of premiering the film at Venice Film Festival, and Mr. Cardin was in attendance, got a standing ovation when he walked in the room, got a standing ovation after the film.
By then he was 98.
Yeah.
He still is. No, he just turned 98. He was 97. He turned 98 last month.
Yeah. Oh. So it's been a wild ride and a dreamy experience.
Oh, we just saw that Jean-Paul Gaultier hosted a private screening in Biarritz, wherever that is. And we saw pictures on Instagram, and we were just like, I can't believe that's our movie.
Oh
right?
My gosh.
Super chic French elite.
Yeah.
With Jean-Paul Gaultier at the front talking about it. We're like,
oh. You need to get some fake passports and make your way.
Oh,
I know.
We've been working on it. They said
go
today, no. There's other filmmakers have gone and quarantined in England or something.
But they tried to get there, and they're still locked out. They can't get themselves into. There's a huge premiere on September 21st that Mr. Cardin is hosting, and throwing an after party at Maxins and the whole
LA theater.
And we can't get there.
Oh,
so our distributor said he is now thinking Paris has a new red zone or something. They're gonna have more.
Not be able to do the
they may not be able to do
schedule.
it.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess the thing with this moment that we're in is that things kind of just change. You know what I mean? Like things change really rapidly, where everyone's kind of excited for this one big thing, and then a week later the numbers spike, and they're like, "No, just kidding, we can't do this."
We're sort of trying to embrace this weird, crazy moment, which is that this film is now being released in virtual theatrical. It's very space age, very Cardin. So we're sort of saying, oh well, maybe it's kind of fitting to the man.
No, exactly. Yeah, it definitely. Just as he was on the forefront, so must we be when we kind of release our art. Could you repeat what year your house was built? You cut out a little bit when you.
1969.
1969.
Yeah.
And then, so wait, how did you get that car? Like, was that just yeah.
We had not yet met Mr. Cardin, and we did not know in any way yet that we'd be making a documentary.
We didn't even know there was a Pierre Cardin. It's like Betty Crocker. It's this name, right? That's been around our whole lives. We never stopped for a moment to go, what does he look like?
Right.
I wonder if he's nice.
Right. Who is he? Yeah. But so I was just looking for all things kind of Pierre Cardin at that point, because we were obsessed with collecting items. And I was like, did you know that he did a car? I said to Todd one morning in bed, we're just like, Googling. And I looked it up, and there was a listing about it on YouTube with a perfect, pristine 1972 AMC Javelin Pierre Cardin edition for sale in Canada. And I tried calling, and got, an answering machine. The guy never called me back. A few days later, I said to Todd, like, should I try one more time? Because it was not expensive, but it's not nothing. So I was sort of like, if I get a hold of him, I might buy it. So should I try one more time? And so I tried one more time, and a woman answered the phone, and I said, I called, left a message, nobody returned it. She said, he didn't call you back. My husband is such a waste of time. And she read him the right act and said, yeah, I guess they had gotten a divorce. And that ad had been up since May, and this was something like October. And she was mad at him that he hadn't sold the car yet. And she said she was going to tell him that we called. And I said, well, do you have an email address or something? And she's like, I don't even know how to get a hold of him. And anyway, so a day later, he called and said that he had hung up. He called our number, but hung up because it was a business. It said the Eversole Hughes Company. And all I was getting were advertisements coming my way for the park. So he said, as soon as I heard it was a business, I thought, you just want something. And then he was thrilled to sell us the car because we're actually people who love Cardin and wanted it. And one thing he said to me when he found out we were filmmakers was, oh, well, I hope the car's going to end up being a movie star.
And it is.
And it is.
Voila.
Does it still work?
Oh, we drive it all. I drive it every week.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So do you just drive down the strip in Palm Springs? Like that?
And magnet.
You have to allow yourself 15 extra minutes when you go somewhere, so you can answer all the boys' questions.
What kind of engine? Blah blah. I'm like, we don't know. We're gay. It's
Well, look at it.
So I mean,
yeah,
kind of engine that gets you from point A to point B in style. But so it's funny. So you talked about meeting Pierre Cardin, because one of my questions was going to be, how did you gain his trust, and how did you, in giving you all this access? But it seems like you didn't really have to do very much. Did he, after he kind of said, I bequeath you the rights to tell my story, did at any point he look at any of your other work, or what did that, once he said once he said go, how did that relationship develop?
Rodrigo is, his right-hand man, is the nephew who's in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And he does sort of, I think, vet and oversee and...
Well, Matthew watched all our films,
yes,
and told Pierre they were brilliant masterpieces, that we had, he said we were very musical and very artistic and avant-garde, which, are music to Pierre's ears. So in that way, we were vetted a little bit.
Yeah.
But when we did our first day of shooting, and it was kind of awkward because we didn't know anybody and we were just getting our sea legs. But when we sat down for that first big interview at Maxins with Pierre, and we had assembled this French crew, and Pierre was really impressed. He told us, he said, wow, you guys are professionals. I'm really impressed. I'm glad I'm doing it with you. And even though his interview, when you set him in front of a camera with lights and an interviewer,
It becomes more formal.
He's more formal. But after that first interview, he said, do you want to go upstairs and see my Art Nouveau museum? And so our cameraman, Laurent King, we were like, follow him. And he was wired for sound anyway, with the
when
live.
Mr. Cardin goes, he takes off. He may be 95 years
Right,
old.
but he starts later.
But off he goes. And there's a lot of footage shooting the back of his head, not just from us, everything else that we've seen of him. Because he'll just be like, I'm going this way. And the camera crew, they have to follow.
But when he was doing that on his own, not being asked questions, he was a font of information, right? He would just tell us stories. And then by the end, that scene where he cries, watching the rehearsal, we'd known him then for about 8 months, 9 months. And he was really comfortable with us. We were becoming friends. And he's always happy to see us. And we have dinner together. And, we don't speak the same language, but we can hang out for hours. He's that kind of guy. And so he really, and then when he saw the film, he's very happy. He was very happy.
Yeah.
He made the right decision.
Absolutely. So what kind of prep did you know, what kind of prep did you do for shooting? And, how did you kind of come up with the arc of the film, and what parts of his life, what parts of his career that you wanted to really hit on?
Yeah, the shooting was complicated because it's so broad in scope. And also, Todd and I come from narrative, and we've moved into documentary. And so we very much wanted, especially since this was a film about Pierre Cardin, for it to be beautiful. So we really, every location that we chose for an interview, every location that we walked into, we wanted to film with 3 cameras so that we could really, capture the beauty of the environment as well as just the person. And we really shot them like narrative moments. So we couldn't just kind of do catch and grab kind of interviews. It always had to be pretty formal and something that we knew that we could get. Then we did the verite part of it, where if we had opportunity to follow Mr. Cardin, off we went, and we just, we got what we got in the moment wherever it happened. But I mean, from the sort of more formal things that we did in Paris with the team and the House of Cardin and sitting down and doing those interviews to ending up on the Great Wall of China, we were all over the place and all over the world filming this movie, which is kind of amazing that we did it when we did it, because now it's not a movie that's possible. Right?
Yeah.
We were in Tokyo, we were in Venice, we went all over the world to follow him.
Pierre opened up his archive, which is his flagship store in Paris. It's 7 stories tall, and his atelier is there. So every floor, it's got people working. But the one floor where he has his office, there was a big room with videos in it. So, and formats, we didn't even know what they were. They looked like they were from Russia, right? They were these like things you've never seen before. And you're like, what is this?
What's that?
And a lot of VHS, right? Very 80s. But then the French, the French television archive, right? The French are so technologically advanced, and they've digitized their entire archive with all the metadata.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the Shoah project in another level. So you can find, you just Pierre Cardin and about 200,000 things came out.
Oh my gosh.
He's been in the media since 1945,
right?
One way or another. So, and every time he hits some kind of a landmark in his life, French television interviews him again. And so whether it's, a new collection, or he's 20 years in the business, or, he bought the Palais Boulle, or whatever it might be, French television kind of comes in and does something on it. The rest of the world doesn't see it, but French TV had it. So we got to do this great deep dive into archival. The great thing about Pierre Cardin is how much material there is and how much he's done. The difficult thing about that is how much material there is and how much he's done. Because trying to figure out how to structure a 97-year life into 97 minutes is what we ended up choosing to do, was tough. And we had a 3-hour cut. Mel, our lead editor, at one point, we just said, just make it somewhere near 90 minutes. And then we'll start figuring out what has to come back in, or what we need to do. And that was the first cut where it began to really take shape. But also our producer, Corey Coppola, watched that long cut. And her comment was that she thought we should scrap trying to go chronologically in any way whatsoever. And that we should go more by theme. So keep things tied to, say, fashion, design, theater,
personal life,
global personal life, and let that be your structure, rather than trying to feel like you had to kind of say, well, this is
tell it as
the
it
60s,
happened.
so we can't go back to that because now we've already covered that. And that really was a huge change.
And then the beautiful thing was we have Pierre Cardin on film talking from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, up until right now, right in the most beautiful digital 4K you can imagine. But you're cutting between that and some scratchy black and white from 1965. And Pierre is saying the same thing. And you realize what an authentic guy, right? He really believes in what he believes in and doesn't waver, because everything he believes in is so simple, right? The essence of Pierre Cardin is that brilliance is simplicity. And, just, it really rubbed off on us, I think, trying to not get too fancy and overanalyze him. And people really, everyone was like, and you're going to cover everything, right? Like that he's a sellout. And we're like, yes, of course we are, because that's part of Pierre Cardin, right? He's famous for creating branding or creating licensing. And he was the first, he took it all the way. He went too far, he admits it. But we're like, God, people really want you to like tear him down somehow.
Right.
And we can't, because there really was no reason to.
Yeah.
That was such a part of his life that he talks about in the film too. You know, why he did what he did and how he changed it, right? He didn't go further, he stopped.
And how it afforded him the freedom to then explore his own creativity and other people's creativity and support it. So it was like, you know, sure, he did something in business that went too far, but it didn't tear him apart. It wasn't the end of his life. It's interesting, like the comparisons. We love this film, the Halston documentary, where he actually did kind of let his life get torn apart. And Mr. Cardin is a much more positive figure, to us, a very inspirational figure. So, you know, we focused more on that side of it.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think, you know, the word sellout gets used a lot when you're talking about creative and artistic endeavors. But, you know, again, as you said, he's saying the same, he's coming from that same philosophy.
Yeah.
It's not like he changed his philosophy in service of something else, you know, it just kind of.
Once he got successful, changed his tune.
Exactly. So I think that's, you know, that's worth, you know, again, like, depending on what your definition of selling out is, like, you know, that's not really what happened in this case.
What kind of sellout creates this huge multi-billion-dollar empire in fashion and housewares and licensing, and then goes, you know, actually, I'm a frustrated actor.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my fortune now and buy a theater and go back to what I love.
And lose $1 million a year.
Yeah, and lose $1 million a
providing
minute.
experimental theater to Paris and the rest of the world. It's funny that I think the thing that people expected, and they have a like predetermined idea about, is that somehow in that over licensing that there was greed, that he had a like greedy mentality under it, and that he went too far because all he cared about, he didn't care if he destroyed the brand, he just wanted money. And it's actually really not the truth about him. He was a businessman doing his artistic kind of expression into business through inventing this thing called licensing and branding that no one had really done before. And when it went too far, he had to sort of go, oh, wow, okay, that animal got out of control. But it wasn't like he went into it saying, what can I exploit? How can I do it?
Well, and I love in the film, too, he compares himself to an athlete, where he says, you know, an athlete goes as far as they can. They try to set a record, and that's all I want to do with everything. Is go as far as I can, do the best that I can.
Yeah.
And, you know, why begrudge him fabulous success?
Absolutely.
Well, be accused of having drunk the Kool-Aid, it's true.
Well, that's true.
We love Mr. Cardin.
So I mean, you've got quite a number of talking heads, and you kind of did a great job of kind of finding people, and sometimes, you know, kind of in unexpected places to talk about Pierre. What was your, like, how did you decide who you were going to go out to, and, you know, what was their reaction on kind of being asked to talk about him? I mean, I assume that once they heard that he was on board, that they were also on board as well.
It was a magic. Yeah, everyone was like, of course. People who said yes that we could not figure out, it was just too impossible, but Brigitte Bardot, who never gives in, said yes. Alain Delon, Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney all said yes.
It's just hard to get in a room. It's just impossible at the time.
Who was the other interesting one?
Marissa Berenson is.
Marissa Berenson, we tried.
And she's very close with him, and she wanted to do it. But, you know, she lives in Morocco, and we would have had to go there just for one interview. So there were things like that just couldn't happen. But in general, we started with the idea that we knew we needed Jean-Paul Gaultier and Philippe Starck, because
that he nurtured two of the greatest designers of.
And we were like, they have to be in the film. And both of them agreed right away to do it. And then we really wanted Naomi Campbell because, I mean, first of all, she's a model of color, and he is famous for having diversified the runway. And so we thought she could speak to that. But she's the only current celebrity that we know of that wears him regularly, his couture vintage, on the red carpet. So we just thought, well, she's a great person to ask and talk to. And we are friendly with Nigel Barker from America's Next Top Model and from The Face, which he was in with Naomi Campbell, 6 Degrees of Separation, where he was working Wranglers. And so we asked him to reach out to her, and she wrote back saying she'd be happy to do it. And then we, Corey Coppola arranged it with her people and all of that. And we interviewed her in Paris at the museum, and she was our first interview.
Wow.
She was asking who else was going to be in the film, and we said Pierre Cardin.
But we were looking, we were looking at everything. We were in his archives, and it was like finding all these pictures of Charlotte Rampling. Oh. And I said, was he good friends with Charlotte Rampling? And they said, no, see, she's always in the picture with this guy, Jean-Michel Jarre. And I didn't know what he looked like, right? I love this guy. I've had his records since I was a teenager. He's like one of the godfathers of electronic music. I was like, Jean-Michel Jarre, why was he friends with him? Oh, he sponsored his early career. And we knew all his fashion shows, he plays Kraftwerk and Jean-Michel Jarre. So we went on Facebook. We were in Paris one more day, wrote to his fan page. He was in Paris one day. It all just worked like that.
There was a lot of that kind of magic.
And his full interview will be on the collector's DVD because he really said some very amazing things.
Yeah. It's funny because you do those kind of interviews, and the way we conduct interviews is that we try to just have a conversation. We try not to have too much of a pointed, I need you to say this, and try to get these kind of points out of them. We try to just talk in general. So there are these great interviews with these, icons of design or music that you only get to use a piece of into the film because only so much pertains to the story of Pierre Cardin. In this case, we're really lucky they're putting out a collector's edition DVD because people like to collect Cardin. We're like,
we'll buy it.
But so we got to put out all these outtakes from the interviews, which is really great.
Wow.
Alice Cooper too.
Yeah, the Alice Cooper.
So we were just going through the Espace Cardin book saying who played at Espace Cardin. We saw that one of the first people to play there was Alice Cooper, and there was this riot. So
and we found the footage on
we found the
YouTube.
footage.
So I was like, oh my, because I was like, that we know the building and we know what it looks like. So behind Alice Cooper, where he's being interviewed, I know that's the Espace Cardin. That's a 1971 concert. So seriously, we Googled his management, sent an email. Within half an hour, the interview was confirmed, set up. And then Alice Cooper that day said, I don't know if I have enough to say. And we're like, get the camera rolling. Right.
And that story he tells about Catherine Deneuve and Bianca Jagger. There were like 3 or 4 of those kind of, just so cool, because he used to hang out with Pierre Cardin and Alain Delon. Oh man, that man, no one should be that good looking, right? Pierre Cardin talking about how good looking Alain Delon, and he was talking about the clothes a lot. Because he said in the early 70s, men didn't have many options, right? So Pierre Cardin was very Carnaby Street. Suddenly clothes were tighter, sexier. So men in rock and roll, especially in the arts, were really happy. We're like, God, that's so interesting. I wish we had another 2 hours, right?
To tell more story, right? I know. Yeah. And it's so fast already. So it's like, even to get the 97 minutes to happen, we had to have a pretty peppy pace.
Yes.
To get everything in that we wanted to get in. And so just the smallest thing that you would say, well, can we add this, is when we were realizing that we were just letting the film bloat. And so we really said to ourselves, there's no way we can catalog all of Pierre Cardin's career. There are amazing books on his life. There have been now great museum exhibits.
Were you able to see the Brooklyn Museum show?
No, I wasn't. When was it?
It closed in January.
Oh, yeah. No.
In July last year, I guess.
Oh.
But I wish people could leave the theater and go right into that exhibit, because then you see it, you can feel it, and see the textures.
Oh, yeah.
The scope of it, right?
Yeah.
We don't even touch on how much he did, because he was, working for 70 years.
Yeah, the stuff is beautiful. But so that became one of the organizing principles as well, which is that it's more important for us to try to give you a sense of who Cardin is than to make sure that we've literally cataloged like everything that he's done.
Right.
And there will be things left out, and there will be people saying to us, but you didn't cover enough of X such Y. And we're like, well, we hope it leads you to Google him.
The starting point.
we can all imagine, you know, we all know who Karl Lagerfeld is, and we all know who Yves Saint Laurent is. We know their faces, their voices. And we're like, Pierre, like, we didn't even know what he looked like, really.
When we got started, yeah.
So we thought, we really want you to leave the theater going, I know that guy, right? You recognize him, you know, a sense of humor. And, you know, it's interesting because people keep saying he just reveals so much of himself in his body language. We had some great review where it's like, and then he refuses to look at the camera, which makes you know he's a little coquettish, right? And he's like a little bit of a bitch, but he loves it and blah, blah, right? All the subtext.
You had mentioned the diversity on the runway. And I mean, another thing that really struck me too is, and you had mentioned it earlier, like kind of the globalism that he really, you know, like the fact that he had his like imprint on so many, in so many different countries. Was that always something that you thought was important to talk about, or, you know, do you think maybe that you're kind of responding to, you know, I will say that we're kind of in this moment where talking about that is really important. And so I find it really interesting that it's kind of already baked into your film. The fact that
Part and parcel of who Cardin is. I mean, he is an international thinker, and he was sort of from the beginning. You know, most of the couturiers from his era, because he's the last standing,
the last living couturier.
Yeah.
They all were kind of to the manner born. They were all rich kids who lived amongst the wealthy and were designing for the wealthy. And it was just their mindset. It was, you know, it's not like there's something exactly incredibly wrong about that. It's just that's what fashion was and what they did. And so up until people like Mr. Cardin, there was no thought of anything outside of that. In 1957, he went to Japan. He was invited there to teach, and he became so smitten with their culture and with Hiroko as the woman who he thought was most representative of what he was creating and what things should look like. He brought her back to Paris and put her on the runway, and she was a sensation. No one had ever thought of it before. No one had ever thought, why wouldn't you use somebody else besides a bunch of, you know, rich white ladies in Paris? So he had this natural inclination towards internationalism. And we think it is because he came up from nothing. He came up from having fled Mussolini. His parents were
and he's an immigrant.
winemakers. And so they had a sense of having some money, but they were not wealthy by any means. And then they ended up just these kind of, you know, discriminated against poor immigrants living in the middle of France. And that he was exposed to all of that before he found his way and made his way up through the ranks. Means that he just had a sensibility that allowed for other people. So when he got into the idea of pret-a-porter and democratization of fashion, it comes from who he is. And when he started thinking about internationalism and why wouldn't you be offering really self-expression when you think about it. Fashion is not just, you know, looking cool and wearing expensive clothes. It's expressing who you are. Everything you wear, you uniform yourself, you communicate to other people about yourself. And so he wanted that to be something that everybody could experience, just because why would it be only for the few?
And, you know, we had so much to deal with, and then we got to China, right? We're kind of saving it for the end because it was just too much to, and then you're like, God, what a beautiful story. That whole thing that he was brave enough right after the Cultural Revolution to go to a communist country where they all dress the same and say, no, 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 you can dress differently. And when we met Guopei, and she said, as a little girl, right, and the country had no color, then all of a sudden there's this color and they all know it's from Pierre Cardin. And you go, wait, this guy should be winning a Nobel Prize instead of the Golden Thimble, because he has done something to make cultures unafraid of each other, respectful of each other, and teaching them how to monetize it.
And color is life. In the Japanese version of the film that's being released, the film's being released worldwide in whatever way that means right now, which is another story. But the movie is called Life is Colorful.
Wow.
And it's true. It's like that is what Cardin represents is that your mind can accept all of this beauty and color of what life is about. So again, I just think it's kind of part and parcel of who he is. He just never thought, why should you only do it this way, or put it inside of this little box?
And then, of course, he diversified the runway by making Hiroko Matsumoto the first Japanese supermodel. And we're like, how lucky that we happen to know one of the Japanese supermodels of the 90s, Jenny Shimizu, who knew all about Pierre Cardin and Hiroko. And being Outfest, we must proudly say, it's our third film with Jenny over a 30-year period.
Yeah,
right?
Todd and Jenny were friends. They were waiters together back in the day. And she was a mechanic, Jenny's mechanic.
I worked at the Border Grill with Jenny Shimizu and Carla Bozilic.
Yeah.
Boy, we had some crazy times. And Jenny was going out with Kathy McGurk, who was running the door at Club Fuck. So every Sunday we'd be like, to get to Club Fuck.
Yeah. And one day our car broke down and we called to try to get a hold of Jenny to see if she was still, working as a mechanic and could she come over. And it was like, oh, it seems as though she's gone to New York and she's a model now and she works for Calvin Klein and she's in this big billboard.
So I guess you can come and help us with our car.
Still be using the wrench.
But that was very exciting to do something. I mean, over 30 years, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is our 10th film at Outfest.
Oh, well, we're so thrilled that we're able to, even in the midst of all of this, that we're still able to have you guys in, whatever virtual way that looks like, and to be able to share the film. I mean, I will say the one thing that I am a little bummed about is that we won't be able to see all the outfits at an in-person screening.
Yeah, right.
I could only imagine what that would look like.
Dress for this movie. We're actually part of the release. We're doing a drive-in in Palm Springs here where we live, and people are coming with vintage autos, retro dress. It's going to be super fun.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So I know outside of the car, what is your favorite Pierre Cardin piece?
Well, he had a record label.
Oh, yes.
So his records are and we have them all.
Wow.
And with negotiations, they're going to do a vinyl re-release of, we curated a greatest hits of Les Disques Pierre Cardin. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. One of my prized possessions actually are these land. You're going to go get some records.
Show and tell. See, this is what we can't do at the theater.
The whole house is filled with it. But we have lamps that we got from the Cardin Museum. They were in the back and they were getting damaged, and they thought there's only there's only 2 people in the world who probably should get these, and so they gave them to us. We had to carry them back in shopping bags from Paris and get them then refurbished when we got here, but they're like a prized possession.
This is a belt buckle from the 60s. It's
that's so beautiful.
And it's black vinyl belt.
Right.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's so gorgeous.
We collect a lot of it, but now, of course, we're driving our own prices up when we go on eBay and Etsy. Right?
Oh.
Everything is getting more and more expensive because we made a movie. That was a
Well, and now David's been finding all the vintage scarves, and we bought a sewing machine, so we're making caftans out of them.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you must have such awesome face covering game, your mask game.
Right.
Well, we started
all the scraps from the
David, me, and our dog Fido. We all wore the Pierre Cardin.
The whole thing broke out. We're like, we don't have any masks, so we're like, oh, we got these Pierre Cardin scarves.
That's actually pretty. That's pretty baller.
Right.
to have that.
Just of note that the Pierre Cardin factories in China have been making masks and things for the hospitals nonstop since COVID started.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So if people want to tell anybody about the film, it's the release for the film starts on August 28th. There's a virtual theatrical where if you go to the website, houseofcardin.com, it shows all the places that it's playing. But the interesting thing about virtual theatrical is that it's not geo-blocked. So whereas, you guys as a film festival have to geo-block, literally anybody in any town can go to a movie theater where it is engaged and get it. So it opens countrywide on August 28th, and everybody can kind of go in, grab it, and get it and watch it. And then September 15th, we open up to proper streaming, so we'll be on all those, all the usual platforms.
All the platforms.
Yeah, coming soon to a screen near you. The screen just happens in your house. But.
I do remember what I was going to ask. Did you eat at Maxins, and what was your meal? What was your favorite meal there?
We ate at Maxins so much that we were like those spoiled children who were like, we have to eat at Maxins. Again, not Maxins. Oh.
Well, what we ate the most of there, which was delicious, is the entrecote.
Yeah.
But they have chicken Pierre Cardin, which is Pierre's favorite chicken dish, which I do not agree with him.
What is it?
Oh God, what was it? It was kind of like almost like a chicken. What's the Italian one? Parmesan.
Oh, okay.
Like a chicken, a cordon bleu. Cordon bleu. It was more like Swiss cheese and.
Yeah, with the ham.
Yeah,
and kind of creamy too. Yeah.
But there was something that made it Pierre Cardin.
But the thing really to do at Maxins is to go in, have champagne, and it's champagne of the house. It's Maxine champagne, and dessert. Because every night they have a whole huge table of desserts, and they roll it out for you to show it to you, and you can kind of choose, from all the different things that they have. And that's like a lovely thing to like go into Maxines and do. And Matthew Gonder was in our movie. He sings there on Friday nights. So he's he's like a crooner. So he goes.
But in the film,
it's very fun.
Any interview that's done where it looks like it's some fancy French salon is Maxins. We had free run of it, and it was massive, and it's in this old part of Paris, and you can feel the subway going underneath. But just room after room, and there's a huge room in the center up top with an open to the sky.
Right, because they have like dance parties at Maxine.
It's a nightclub now.
We're just taken over by young people all up and down the stairwells. It's really cool.
We tried to have a gay nightclub there once a month or something.
Yeah, once a month. And
Pierre likes to come in and check it out.
And he just sits and watches.
So we so wanted to film that, but we never got it.
Oh, well. I mean, you've got so much in there already. I don't even know.
I know we found him dancing at a disco. That was.
We did find him dancing at a disco. We got that footage at the end, and we were like, "Oh my God, Pierre Cardin dancing! We have to put that."
Are there any moments that you are kind of like, just for each of you? Is there like, name like one moment that you're like, oh, I wish we could have figured out a way to put this in.
To have gotten into the film.
Well, we had a whole section on the record label.
Yeah.
I guess when I look back, there are just great moments of things that were said by our interviewees that I wish that we could have included more, but we did steer towards letting Pierre speak for himself. So there are these sort of beautiful passages. That's why I'm really happy about the collector's edition, which is that people can hear and see what people have to say. But there are also those things like
pictures show up. The movie's done and locked, and then these photos come in. There's a picture of David Bowie in a bathrobe that's covered with Pierre Cardin logos. That would have been perfect for this one part in the movie. We show something else, but that would.
The branding moment.
Yeah.
Right. And, you wear it to show that you have good taste. And we were like, oh, there's the picture. There's the picture.
I always forget. We have Lady Gaga, right? There's one picture of Lady Gaga in Cardin.
Right, wearing a dress in the movie.
But David Bowie's so much cooler.
Yeah.
I think it's also, if there's something that we didn't get that I wanted to get, it was Dapper Dan. And Dapper Dan agreed to do the movie, and it was right during that there was a huge controversy at Gucci, and we were in New York filming Dionne Warwick, and we couldn't get him, in the room. We couldn't get the timing to happen. But because he's the guy who kind of took it to the next level, he took all this branding and turned it into streetwear. And he took that idea of fashion being for everybody, and the idea even of luxury being something that everybody can aspire to, and he kind of stole it and made everybody aware that there was even this kind of cultural divide going on about who it was that you were saying could engage in that. So we just thought he would have brought a really interesting perspective to the movie, and we just couldn't get it this timing wise. Sometimes the movie has to be done.
You know,
Why keep going? It has to be done.
If we had started 1 year earlier, Jean Moreau was alive.
Yeah.
Givenchy was alive. A lot of people that we could have interviewed were alive.
Yeah.
And they just died in, was that 2016?
Azzedine Alaïa.
2017.
Yeah.
Azzedine Alaïa, actually, we had him on camera. We didn't put it in the film.
We thought it was too sad. He was at the opening book party, the book signing. And so we had a little piece of him, not much. And we just thought, it's distracting because the first thing you think is, oh, he's dead. So it was just, yeah.
Well, I mean, again, what is there is so amazing, and to hear that there's this collector's edition coming out, which I'm sure is going to also look gorgeous, just like the packaging. I can only imagine
the commemorative book.
Yeah, there's a 16-page commemorative book, and the artwork, the
a
poster,
CD of the soundtrack.
The whole poster work was so beautiful, done by this artist Tom Dole that we know from here in Palm Springs. He actually did like a limited edition poster for us for a screening here in Palm Springs, and our distributors loved it so much that they engaged.
Oh, that's amazing! That's amazing. So you said a collector's CD. What about some vinyl? Is there also?
No, the vinyl would be the greatest hits of the latest Pierre Cardin, and that is, we think, coming. And there should be a downloadable version of the score as well. But in the collector's edition DVD, there's also a separate CD where you get the soundtrack, which is really
amazing.
Cool. One of the Pierre Cardin, rapping at the end of the movie. So. In the credit sequence, it's
in
the
French.
Whole song.
Amazing. Well, who knew that when you guys decided to move to Palm Springs that you would end up being like the Pierre Cardin ambassador, collector.
It makes you reevaluate the universe, because I mean, it was really us loving something, and then it manifested this fabulous adventure. And then Pierre Cardin himself, like, what a joy to know one of the most self-realized man of the 20th century.
Oh, amazing. All you wanted to do was take a picture with him, and look what happened. You made a picture about him.
And then we fell in love.
Oh. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun, and the film is so much fun. And like, even if you don't really know who Pierre Cardin is, I think that after you watch it, you are going to be trying to figure out how you can get your hands on some of this stuff.
Trying to drive my prices up on eBay. Come on.
Artificially, we get some bots to go in and raise the price. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And, while we can't be together in person, we're so glad that we can at least chat with you and watch the movie, in the safety of our own homes, and still be able to have a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy to be at Outfest.
Always happy to be at Outfest.
And
we're always happy to have you.
Our Q&A.